And welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Great to have you in the program with us. It's just kind of funny to watch looking at my Twitter feed from the interview on CNN. It's just kind of gone absolutely crazy. I tell you, I've never done a less professional interview in my life. And I'll tell you, Anderson Cooper wanted me to be on his program tomorrow, and I called the senior producer and I said no. I mean, that's the most unprofessional interview I've ever been a part of. I never had an opportunity to finish an answer to a question. She interrupted me more than Alan Colmes, which I thought was humanly impossible. And she asked questions at the end about homosexuals and the Nazis, which I was happy to answer, but completely irrelevant to what we were talking about. We weren't talking about homosexuals and the Nazis. We were talking about Mix It Up Day, Southern Poverty Law Center, so just completely off topic. So it was the least professional interview I have ever seen done on a major network. In fact, it's interesting. At the end of the interview, I was starting to talk with her about the fact that there are health risks associated with homosexuality, and you can prove this by going to the CDC website and the FDA website. We've talked about this before. It's not news to you. News to her audience because they don't listen to the truth. They can't handle the truth. So when I got to the point where I was talking about the government's own information at the Centers for Disease Control, and remember the CDC, they've got a page there where they have kept track of the mode of transmission for every male that's ever gotten HIV/AIDS in the history of the epidemic. And 90% of them got it either through having sex with other men or through intravenous drug use. 60% through men having sex with men, 22% intravenous drug use, 8% they don't know, could be either or. That's 90%. And she didn't want to talk about that. In fact, that's when she cut my water off. She didn't want to hear the truth. She didn't want to talk about the government's own figures, the government's own proof about the health hazards of homosexual lifestyle. And I mentioned the FDA. Food and Drug Administration still will not allow a male homosexual to donate blood if he's had sex one single time with another male since 1977. Now, the FDA is not a conservative right-wing organization. They're just out there to protect the nation's blood supply. And they realize that, look, gay sex is so risky to human health, we cannot risk the purity of the nation's blood supply. She didn't want to hear it, and that's when she cut off my water thoroughly. Unprofessional interview. By the way, if you want to get the best voter guide we got going, go to afaaction.net, afaaction.net. This is a killer voter guide. We've got an app for it. If you got an iPhone or an Android, go to your app store and just put AFA space action, AFA space action, and it'll call up the app for the voter guide. This is something you can access on your smartphone. You can take it with you right in to the polling place. So that's afaaction.net. It's the premier voter guide in all the country. You are not going to find a better, more thorough voter guide anywhere on the political landscape. So all you got to do is put in your address or put in your zip code, and boom, it'll pop up voter information for the races that are relevant for where you live. You're not going to have to wade through a bunch of extraneous information. It'll pop up the races that you actually are going to vote in. The presidential race, obviously. Congressional races, you'll just get the congressional race that applies to you. Senatorial race, if you got that going. Even some states, we're working on getting state legislative races on the voter guide. So that's afaaction.net, the best voter guide that you can get. Now let's, got to find my rundown here. Here is Chuck Todd. This is clip 5. Chuck Todd, I mentioned this yesterday, but it's interesting. When you got a guy like Chuck Todd, I mean, this guy, total cheerleader for Obama. He's a minister of propaganda for the White House. And even he is seeing a seismic shift in this deal that even he cannot ignore. Let's listen.
Very hesitant to hype this like that,
right.
But I feel like this one is that big. And because, there's something that happened in the campaign. It wasn't just that Romney got into with that first debate and it sort of, at first you heard Democrats saying, oh, Republicans are just coming home. And that's what tightened the polls. And in fact, I actually heard some Republicans say that. I have to say, in the private data that I've heard about over the last couple of days, the last 72 hours, plus what you're seeing, I feel like there has been a structural shift. We're no longer in this. It's even but the president has these advantages. But the president has these advantages in the battleground states, I think, is gone. I mean, yes, the president has an advantage in Ohio, but we're starting to see a consistent Romney, very narrow, but a Romney lead in places like Florida. We're seeing Colorado totally dead even, Iowa closing. So I think that there is something structural that happened, and that's why this debate, critical time. If the president doesn't show up, he could end up in a deficit that I don't know if one more debate could make it up.
So Chuck Todd is saying basically this is do or die for the president. It's win or go home. That's the way Chuck Todd is previewing this debate tonight. Everything's on the line for Obama. This thing is slipping away from him. The advantages of being president in the battleground states, that is completely gone. It is evaporated. Things are tightening up in Ohio. They're virtually neck and neck in Ohio. You know, Virginia, Florida, key battleground states, and Suffolk polling, they pulled completely out of those states. We've talked about this before, but they pulled out of those states. No point in even polling in Virginia. No point in polling in Florida. Those are going Romney. It's a waste of our time, just like it's a waste of my time to go back on CNN. They're saying, look, it's a waste of our time to go into Virginia and Florida and do any polling in those dates because they are going to go for Romney. So even Chuck Todd is saying, look, the hole now is so deep for Barack Obama that if he doesn't win this debate tonight decisively, if he doesn't land a knockout punch, Chuck Todd says he does not think that Obama is going to be able to make it up. In other words, Chuck Todd saying if Obama loses the debate tonight, it could be game over. That's, again, just in his opinion. Now, Candy Crowley is the moderator. She's a CNN, and I've probably done my last interview with CNN. But Candy Crowley, she is the moderator tonight. Now, here's an interesting thing. I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to read to you the debate rules. These are the debate rules that both the Romney campaign and the Obama campaign agreed to. This is what it says about the moderator. In managing the 2-minute comment periods, the moderator will not rephrase the question or open a new topic. The moderator will not ask follow-up questions or comment on either the questions asked by the audience or the answers of the candidates during the debate or otherwise intervene in the debate except to acknowledge the questioners from the audience or enforce time limits and invite candidate comments during the 2-minute response period. So the point is they're not supposed to be players in this. They're referees. That's their job. They're to be referees. They're to patrol the sidelines. They're to watch the clock, call the 2-minute warning. That's their job. They're not players. They're not supposed to take snaps. They're not supposed to call plays in the huddle. They're not supposed to challenge the game plan of the coach or the play calling of the quarterback or the offense coordinator. They are purely and simply to be a referee. But that's not what Candy Crowley's going to do. And she's made it clear time and time again, she's not going to be bound by these rules. Here's what she said. Once the table is kind of set by the town hall questioner, there is then time for me to say, hey, wait a second, what about X, Y, and Z? Now, if you're a moderator and you accept a moderating gig and you know what the rules for the moderator is, then it is unconscionable for you to take the gig and say, I'm going to ignore the rules. I'm not going to play by the rules. You have a conscientious obligation. If you want to intrude yourself, if you want to insert yourself like Candy Crowley wants to do, then you say, sorry, I'm not your guy. I'm not the guy you want because I want to intrude. I want to be a part of this debate. I want to ask follow-up questions. I want to get right in the grill of Mitt Romney. I want to get right in the grill of Barack Obama. So I'm not your guy. If that's what you want, then I'm not your guy. And that's what Candy Crowley should have said in good conscience. But she's not saying it. She says, look, basically, I'm not a potted plant. I want to give my opinion. I'm going to do it. Let's see just who can stop me and who's going to stop her. Who is going to stop Candy Crowley? I mean, she's the CNN. I mean, I guess they're sponsoring this deal or whatever. Who's going to walk up there and stop her? Who's going to be the moderator for the moderator? And she's not exactly neutral. Let's grab clip number 6. Here is Candy Crowley. Now, this is the person that's supposed to be the even Steven, neutral, objective moderator for this debate, not play favorites. Be sure she's even Steven. Here's what she had to say about the Romney-Ryan ticket just several weeks ago.
There is some trepidation
that
this might be, looks a little bit like some sort of ticket death wish.
So that's Romney Ryan. That's a ticket death wish. That's her view of the Romney Ryan ticket. Picking Romney was a death wish for Romney. So that's your objective, neutral journalist speaking there. Now, and here is Candy Crowley back in 2010 when Tea Party fever was at its highest. And what I asked Jan to do in cutting up this clip is just pull out the questions that Candy Crowley asked. I wasn't even interested in the answers, but her bias is evident in the three questions that she asked. She was on with Mitch McConnell and Steny Hoyer. And I didn't even care about their reactions. What I'm interested in is the questions that she asked and the bias that she clearly displayed. Let's listen.
Do you think that there are racist elements in the Tea Party? Nothing that you've seen on TV, including some of the signs that we've seen, albeit the minority, at some of these Tea Party rallies, some of the posters that have been put up in the name of some factions of the Tea Party make you the least bit uncomfortable? Lots of talk about the Tea Party. Now, that is where the passion is in politics these days, is inside the Tea Party, against a lot of big government spending, against big government in general. Do you think that the Tea Party, as you know it to be, condones racism?
So that's Candy Crowley. And remember, Paul Ryan is a big-time Tea Party hero. Tea Party loves this guy. So Candy Crowley's view of the people that support Paul Ryan is that they're all a bunch of neo-Nazi racists. And that's her view of Paul Ryan. And she's supposed to be the moderator in this deal. By the way, there was a piece that came out in the New York Times on this Mix It Up Day with the Southern Poverty Law Center. And they interviewed me. The New York Times interviewed me for the piece, and the left just went apoplectic because the New York Times referred to the American Family Association as an conservative evangelical group. And the wingers on the left, they wanted us referred to as neo-Nazi stormtroopers. So they were not happy with the New York Times for describing AFA as a conservative evangelical group. And then I was described in this piece as the director of issue analysis, and they wigged out over that because they wanted me described as the leading hate-mongering, homophobic bigot on the planet. And the New York Times didn't do it. They simply described me as what I am, the director of issue analysis for AFA. So they just went absolutely wiggy over that. Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be back with your phone calls, 888-589-8840. If you want to join the conversation, 888-589-8840. Back in 2.